How's it flying, guys? Lance Corporalhawk 30 here, and yeah, there's not an excuse for why I'm continuously as late as I am, more and more so lately. It's just, I've just not felt up to reacting very much. Only a handful of times. And I need to kick myself in the butt about catching up on some of this stuff, or a lot of this stuff, I really do. I just, bad procrastinator. That's all there is to it. I just procrastinate. Even when I have time, even when I'm at home and there's nothing busy going on, I just procrastinating. That's all it is to it. There's not an excuse for why I'm so late. So, this one came out 6 months ago. Yeah, but it's shorter, so I'm going to react to this, and I'm going to react to another one of the Fat Files videos that I'm behind on. And then after that, I'm going to head to the movies today. Because the new Naked Gun movie is out. And I actually think it's going to turn out decent. I'm hoping. But anyways, I'm going to stop wasting time. Y'all are here for a reaction. And I apologize for being so late. I need to get a day from a... That was from a prior thing. But anyways, yeah, I just need to get a day, get up off my butt, and do a session. Literally the only problem with that is a lot of Nick's videos do break the 30-minute mark, so that does kind of slow things down a little bit, but I need to just figure out one of my days where I have nothing going on and sit down while it's early and it's not hot out and just do a session of like 4 or 5 catch-up videos. So, anyways, this is America's secret weapon that won World War II, VT Fuze. Yeah, a video from 6 months ago. I'm only just now getting to it, and again, I apologize, but here, I'm going to stop wasting time. Link to the original will be in the description. Make sure you've seen it before you watch my reaction. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and go.
Does anybody else remember that one time in the 1940s when nobody could get Christmas lights and nobody knew why, and then it came out like 10 years later that it was because America figured out how to turn Christmas lights into a super weapon to win World War II? Yeah, me neither, but we're going to
No, I didn't know about that either.
Today we're talking about these single...
I remember hearing about how tinsel, like Christmas tinsel, was basically somebody's going to correct me on this, or he'll mention it but wasn't tinsel basically created as something, as a material that was designed to kind of make it harder to be detected on radar or something like that? I can't remember the specifics, but I know that tinsel has a relation to something relating to that. I can't remember.
Most impactful weapon of World War II that gave the Allied forces an unprecedented advantage over their enemies. And before you say it, no, it is not nuclear bombs, okay? By the time nuclear bombs were dropped on Japan, it was not a question of who was going to win the war. It was a question of how was America going to end it, and America chose to close it out with a bang. If you're not picking up what I'm trying to tell you that the weapon that we're talking about today is the weapon that got us to the grand finale, not the grand finale itself. And that weapon is the VT Fuze, aka the proximity fuse. And we're going to get into it right after a word from our sponsor.
Nick, I have a headache.
Have you drank water?
Yeah.
All right, here. Try one of these.
What is it?
It's called Element. It's going to be even better than water.
It's not bad.
Yeah, just try not to get lipstick on my water bottle.
I'll get lipstick on something.
I got to go. Okay, look,
don't blame you, man. You do what you gotta do.
But unlike all the shit you can buy over at the gas station, it actually has more electrolytes. They're in the right ratios, and it's not full of food dyes and sugar. Okay, watch. I'm going to read the entire ingredient list because I actually know all of these words, which right off the bat's a good sign. Okay, here we go. Sparkling water, salt, citric acid, magnesium, potassium, natural grapefruit flavor, and stevia leaf. That's fucking it. And then somehow they actually managed to make this shit
short and
taste
sweet.
Good, okay? They've got all your normal flavors like watermelon, fruit punch, but then they also have mango chili, which is actually spicy. Then they've got chocolate, and then when you mix that with warm water, it tastes like hot chocolate. And then if you're a psychopath, or if you're just ultra health-minded and you don't want artificial flavorings, you can get the raw, unflavored version that's literally just salt, potassium, and magnesium. Personally, I like that one because it tastes like kami tears. Okay, and I know what you're thinking. Why on earth is some sports drink that's formulated for elite level athletes sponsoring a dude called the Fat Electrician? I've got news for you. Middle-aged fat dudes sweat too, okay? Okay, look at me. I sweat in the cold shower. Why do you think I'm wearing tank tops all the time, okay? So when I go to jujitsu 5 times a week to pretend like I'm Joe Rogan or Jocko Willink for an hour or 2, I get super sweaty, then I get muscle cramps, and this shit helps. And then on top of that, I have a horrible habit of being aggressively drunk with my friends and being hungover the next day, and this helps with that too. Okay, so if you want to give it a try, they've got it in cans,
good
They've got it
reason.
in little drink pouches. If you use my link down below, you're going to get a free sample pack, and there's a money-back guarantee. If you don't like it, they'll refund the entire thing. So if you want to give it a try, head over to drinklmnt.com/thefatelectrician. Let's get back to the video. All right, our story begins in 1939, and at this point in time, there's approximately 2 different types of fuses for artillery and anti-aircraft rounds, okay? First, we have the direct hit fuse, which essentially is exactly what it sounds like. The round hits something solid, it then blows up. This is typically what's used in artillery. And then we had a variable time fuse that was more commonly used in anti-aircraft rounds. Basically, if you saw planes coming in, you would try to guess how far away they were, and then you would time how long it would take the projectile to get there. And there was a knob on the round where you could set it to detonate at like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds.
Okay, so that's what this is.
Quick math, and then try to shoot it at the plane, and then after it left the barrel 7 seconds later, it would explode in midair, whether it was near the plane or not. And then, as I'm sure you can imagine, trying to guesstimate the range on a plane, and then guesstimate where it's going to be at, and then trying to have all these factors aligned at the exact moment that it's near the plane wasn't very effective. And to put very effective into perspective, in the early days of World War II, they said it took somewhere between 2,500 and 1,800 anti-aircraft rounds to down a single plane. So pretty much everybody on the planet had basically the same idea, like, man, wouldn't it be cool if the anti-aircraft round just magically knew when it got near the plane and blew up at the exact perfect moment every single time. So pretty much everybody all over the planet has this like on the back burner trying to figure out this new type of weapons technology.
So this is not a one-to-one, obviously, what I'm about to say. Is this does this technology kind of lead into the precursor of what would be, like, guided missiles in some degree? Because you got to think, guided missiles will follow a target, but this will get close, will be able to detect when it gets close to a target. Is there some relation where we get from point A to point B with this? Or I don't know if he's going to mention it. Maybe he will, but I'm sure he'll explain near the end how it evolved from here.
Japan, Germany, the UK, America, everybody's been working on this in the background, but there's not a big rush because there's no war going on at the time. And then September 1939, World War II kicks off, and then almost exactly a year after that, Germany starts heavily bombing Britain in the Blitz, and now Britain has a pretty good incentive to figure out this new type of weapons technology.
That would speed up production on certain things.
Know how they're going to pull this off, but they do know they need to figure out how to get small electronics to be able to survive inside of an artillery round after it's been fired, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, it's subjected to a lot of G-force, which is going to break small electronic devices, especially back in the 1940s when everything was run off of vacuum
that's the big
tubes.
thing.
So the British figure out right out of the gate, like, hey, this thing's spinning at 50,000 rotations per minute once it's fired. We need to make these electronic components as small and as light as possible so they don't rip themselves apart just under the G-force of their own weight. Which makes perfect sense. I mean, when Dad's had one too many chiladas on a Sunday afternoon and decides he's going to get the kids going on the Ferris wheel as fast...
The hell? Felt something crawling up my foot. That's what you saw the reaction you just did. A little spooter or something crawling around my ankle. Okay, I hope I got it. I'm not sure. Either that or it's done gone on. Either way.
Fast as he can, the fat kid flies off first, okay? That's just science. Was I the fat kid? Don't fucking worry about it. I had a great childhood, okay? Now, at this point in time, Britain is in full-on war production. All of their industrial capacity is being used to build new warplanes to defend themselves, and they don't have the capacity to start investing in all this, like, new microcircuitry and tiny little itty-bitty vacuum tubes. So they decide, hey, we're just going to order 20,000 miniature electron tubes from this hearing aid company over in America. And then the American War Department hears about this, and they're like, you guys working on fucking hearing aids right now while the Germans are bombing you every night? No, you're not. What the fuck are you up to?
It's like deductive reasoning. We need a large rush order of this specific component. Don't worry about it. I feel like being nosy today. It's like, I'm going to worry about it. You're buying it from us. I kind of would like to know what you're planning on doing with this. Is it something that could give us an edge too? Maybe we can make it better than you can. I don't know.
So the British comes clean and they tell America, like, hey, we're allies, whatever. Here's what we're doing. We're trying to develop this anti-aircraft round that can sense when it gets near a plane and then blow up in midair and fuck up all these planes. So we quit getting bombed every night. At which point America's like, cool, great, dope, whatever. We'll give you whatever you need. But You have to give us all of the information that you get from your testing, so we have it also. So the British go, they do their testing, they do figure out how to get the electrical components to survive being shot out of an artillery shell, but they don't really figure out anything else after that. They don't figure out how to actually make it sense the plane, and they don't figure out the biggest problem of how in the fuck do you get a power source to all these electrical components, because it's 1940 and batteries aren't really that great at this point in time.
So this sounds like it ends up being a collaborative effort. Like, the British figure out the first step that they wanted to, but they're not sure how to get that final product that they're aiming for. Insert America. Yeah, we'll handle it from here.
So the entire project just kind of gets shelved, regarded as impossible. Nobody can figure out how to do it. Everybody just kind of moves on. And then fast forward to 1941, Japan commits the ultimate cardinal sin of touching America's boats.
Oh, now you fucked up. You have fucked up now.
At which point Uncle Sam is like, here, hold my beer. You, go get a bunch of science nerds, tell them I want to put a sun inside of a bomb so I can drop it on my enemies. Hand me my lab coat. I'm going to go figure out this magic bullet that knows when to blow up thing. Okay, I've said this once and I'll say it again. Nothing stokes human creativity like the desire to kill a motherfucker that you don't like, because America figures out how to make a proximity fuse in like a couple of months. So more or less over...
What's the saying? Necessity is the mother of invention. I'm pretty sure the father of invention would be wartime, because that seems to be when a lot of innovations get made, especially in the 20th century, if nothing else. Look at how far we went from the old methods of war and the old technologies that were commonly used in war before the First World War. Fast forward to the end of it, look how many things drastically changed from there. Is that another freaking bug on me? Just in that one war alone, how many advancements were made over a 4 or 5 year period? Just like, holy crap. And then this war, I'm pretty sure a lot more.
Simplified version of what they did. They took a Doppler radar, stuck it inside of this artillery round. That way, when the round is flying through the air, it's constantly emitting pulse signals. And then if there's open air, the pulse signals aren't hitting anything, so they're not coming back to the round. But when the round gets close to something solid in the sky, like an enemy plane, the signals hit the plane, bounce back, and the round can sense that, and then when the round senses that it's close enough to the plane, it blows up, and there's fucking death confetti everywhere at the exact perfect moment. And
it's also amazing to think how many inventions were formed by combining pieces of prior technology. Like they said they used some Doppler radar technology to be the thing that detected it. Like, you combine a bullet with a Doppler, congrats. Yeah, makes sense.
That's not even the crazy part. The crazy part is the battery, right? Because we can't just put a normal battery.
That's right. He did say
artillery round, because by the time that we build it in America, ship it across the ocean, the shitty batteries in the 1940 would have lost the charge, and then the round's just going to be a dud right out of the gate. So what they did is they took a small vial of acid, put it in the middle of the artillery round, and then surrounded it with lead, and then hooked it up to electrodes, so that when the artillery round was fired, the glass would break, the acid would get all over the lead and create an electrical current to power the Doppler radar while it was in flight.
Okay.
Do you understand what I just said? America created an artillery round that, after it was shot out of a howitzer, would manufacture its own battery mid-flight to know when to fuck up the enemy. But how long does the battery last? For the enemies in the plane, it's a lifetime supply, homie. It's the last battery they're ever gonna need.
Yeah, it's like, who would even about that? How long does the battery last? Doesn't matter. It starts as soon as you fire it. And then after that, if you miss, you miss. If you don't, well, that's all you need. It lasts as long as you need it to, plain and simple.
To be fair, there is some obvious problems, you know, like having a small vial of glass being the only thing that's standing between you and an artillery round blowing up the second it gets near anything solid is kind of terrifying, as I'm sure you could imagine an artillery round blowing up the second.
Over 30 million of these glasses were produced by General Electric Department to make the VT. Hold on, let me see if I can. Where's the. No? Where's the frame by frame? Okay. Over 30 million of these glass capsules were produced by General Electric's lamp department to make the VT radio proximity fuse a practical success and one of our most effective defenses against kamikaze attacks, Jap suicide planes. When the shell is fired over the the capsule shatters, freeing the electrolyte, which makes the battery operative. Okay, there's a part where it cuts off there. Tiny radio station thing sends out radio waves. Speaking of planes. The A-10s are out and about again. Let me see if I can get a little... Okay, well... That gets me down near the whole thing. So, tiny radio station then sends out radio waves, which, if reflected by any target 70 feet or less away, detonates the projectile at the ideal distance for maximum effect. Okay, I was able to read pretty much the whole
solid
thing.
Is kind of terrifying. As I'm sure you can imagine, transporting that would be a nightmare because if one of those things breaks, you're going to blow up the entire truck. So as a safety mechanism, they actually ended up cutting little tiny wafers of lead and stacking them all along the vial.
Okay, so that's what it looks like on the inside.
And then if the vial broke, it would just kind of like leak out and it wouldn't do anything. But when it was shot out of a gun, the 50,000 rotations a minute would have enough centrifugal force to make the lead fly out and in between all the lead wafers, and that's how it would power. So the shell's only going to go off when it's spinning after it's been fired out of a gun. So America's done it. They've essentially made magic bullets, and now America is going to do what America does best. We're going to tie up this solution in bureaucratic nonsense so that nobody can use it.
Of course!
Wow.
Okay. How many times?
Help you, Michael. Bitch.
Yeah, the man in charge of this project, Commander William S. Parsons, decides he's not going to let this project move forward until he's 100% convinced that this product is perfect. So the proximity fuse is essentially
perfect. Oh, man. If you strive for perfection, you will fail every time. Oh, I'm gonna freaking... Yeah. Morons! Always morons like, oh, we're not gonna do it till it's perfect. You don't need perfection. You need it to be effective. You know? You can strive for improvements once you've got the general basics down, but not like if you're trying to make improvements on something, sometimes the process is really just okay, little by little by little. It doesn't have to be a massive. Okay, we're not putting this out until it's 100% perfect. You know. That's why you work on it, improve on it slowly as you go. Once you get something that's close to what you're wanting, once you get something that provides at least the minimum results that you were expecting, then start, making use of it and then improving as you go along, as you discover more things from there. But you just don't, completely stonewalling stuff like that when it could have made a difference, like, I don't know, I'm gonna say months potentially in advance is just being I don't know.
Cue my favorite naval commander of all time, Willis Augustus Lee, aka
Ching Lee.
On your left.
Hey, it's the man.
Okay, I did a whole video on this guy a while back.
Yes, you
did. If you haven't
did.
seen it, I highly recommend you go watch it because he's absolutely incredible. But the real quick and dirty of it is, this guy has these super thick glasses because when he was in like 7th grade, he got bored and built a bomb that blew up in his own face and permanently damaged his vision. So naturally, he then went on to become a 5-time gold medalist sharpshooter in the Olympics. He then went on to become a strategic genius in the Navy. He is the reason that every single American naval vessel in World War II is absolutely covered in anti-aircraft guns. Using his sharpshooting experience, he is the one that figured out and developed the calculations for a battleship battery to take into account the Coriolis effect, or the rotation of the Earth in targeting data. And he is also the one that pioneered being able to shoot at an enemy using nothing more than radar, even when you can't see the enemy. The man is a prodigy that changed warfare forever. And at this point in time, early 1942, essentially right after Pearl Harbor, Ching Lee was given orders to basically go around the Navy and just cut through red tape and unfuck everything to get the entire Navy as ready as possible.
Hello, red tape.
And even though he had the authority to cut through red tape, the problem was this was 1942. You couldn't send a text message, you couldn't send an email. Everything was done by either handwritten or typed letters, and then you had to stamp everything with like priority, urgent, standard, telling the mail carrier in the military, like, how quick does this letter need to get where it's going? And urgent, being the fastest option, wasn't fast enough for Ching Lee. So he went and had his own custom rubber stamp made, and he used red ink, and in all caps, his rubber stamp said, frantic. So that way, every time
Yeah.
Ching Lee had a project that he wanted to get pushed through the Navy as fast as possible, he would stamp it with a big red frantic, and then every paper pusher in the Navy has that come across their desk, and they're like, oh shit, oh fuck, I've never seen anything labeled frantic, and they grab it, and that is now their sole mission in life to get this to the next place. So all this shit gets done super fast. So as soon as Ching Lee hears that we've essentially made magic artillery shells tied up in bureaucratic nonsense, he gives it the old frantic stamp and pushes it right along.
He's like the anti-beaver dam. It's like bureaucracy is like the beavers of the military. If you look about it, like it's like running water. Absolutely not. We're stopping that all up. And he's just the lumberjack. This is like, oh, I don't know where I was going with that analogy. He's like the opposite of the beavers. Yeah, I'm getting back to it before I make a more bigger idiot of myself than I already was.
Saying, and I quote, we're looking for a workable solution, not a perfect one.
Thank you!
It immediately goes into testing, and its first test is to have an anti-aircraft battery on the ground firing at a bunch of radio-operated drones above, and these proximity fuses absolutely crush these drones, okay? The only person disappointed was the commanding officer of the drones because he was mad they were shooting down all of his drones. Great. Next phase of testing takes place in August of 1942. They take the proximity.
Also, the drone officer, that's the point. You're looking for success, and success involves shooting down the things that you were operating. More spectacular are those tests showing VTs triggered by the proximity of...
Fuses out in the USS Cleveland, and they're going to try to shoot...
At Dahlgren, Virginia, the Navy fires them over a wire screen 70 feet above the water using reduced charges to avoid shattering the shell and destroying the target.
Shoot down drones over the ocean. This testing is slotted for 2 full days, and they've got 3 drones to shoot down, okay? Bear in mind, the British are reporting back that it's taking approximately 1,800 anti-aircraft artillery rounds to down a single enemy plane. So, with one ship shooting at 3 different planes, this should take a while. Testing ended up getting cut short because the USS Cleveland shot down all 3 drones with the first 4 rounds fired.
Wow.
Statistically speaking, this should have taken between 5,000 and 6,000 rounds.
Big improvement.
So obviously at this point, America's all in. Call up Rosie the Riveter. We've got something new to make. The whole 9 yards, right? Now the problem is, how the fuck are we going to mass produce this thing, right? Because we're using these tiny little tubes that we're using for hearing aids, and we like hearing aid manufacturing isn't that big at the time. We're not going to be able to mass produce this thing. So the government goes out to General Electric, which coincidentally is the biggest manufacturer of Christmas lights on the planet at this point in time, and is like, here's the deal. You're not making Christmas lights anymore. You're going to take those little Christmas lights, and instead of putting a little light filament in there, you're going to fill it with this acid, and then you're going to seal off the other end, and you're going to give it to us, and you're going to shut the fuck up about it, okay? At which point GE is like, cool, government contracts are awesome. Yeah. Now we've got the manufacturing, and we can mass produce this thing.
So when did General Electric start mass producing things that spin that also deal in death? Because I know General Electric are the ones behind the A-10 Warthog's gun. So did that tradition of making things spin and explode and deal death start here, or was that earlier?
This is why you don't touch the boats, all right? You touch the boats, one thing leads to another, and now we're weaponizing Christmas lights.
I think you might be overdoing it, Dad.
Russ, when was the last time I overdid anything?
Gonna get freaking copyrighted over that, but it's so perfect.
Okay, seriously though, this is absolutely huge. This has to be top secret. Nobody can know about this. Even the dudes in the anti-aircraft battery don't know that they're firing a proximity fused ammunition. They just know that suddenly overnight they got like 20 times better at their job. And because this technology absolutely cannot fall into enemy hands, it becomes standard practice that they're only allowed to shoot proximity fused ammunition over water. So the only people that are going to have access to this are the Navy, and then we're also going to give it to the British over in England because their anti-aircraft defenders are firing out over the English Channel, so any duds are going to land in the water and sink to the bottom of the ocean and
makes sense.
And then there's the last problem. What are we going to name this thing, right? We don't want to call it anything too obvious, right? The reason that we call tanks Tanks was because back in World War I, when the British developed the first tank, they just called it that because on the chart list, they wanted anybody that intercepted documents to think, oh, it must be like a water tank or something.
Right.
So we
You
have
gotta be
to
smart
have
about
a
it.
deceptive name. So they came up with the VT fuse. And that way, anytime somebody was like reading a chart or an inventory list,
They wouldn't know what the heck they were talking about.
They'd go, what the fuck is a VT? Oh, variable timed fuse, those old school ones that just, you know, you spin the knob and it blows up in 7 seconds. Whoop-de-doo, who cares? So we've got it. Everything's perfect. America starts manufacturing 250,000 of these rounds every single week. We start sending them out with the US Navy, and then we ship a ton of them over to Great Britain so they can start defending themselves against all these German bombing raids that they've been dealing with for like over a year at this point. The first VT fuse to down an enemy was on January 5th, 1943, when the USS Helena shot down a dive bomber, and from that moment on, the US Navy and the British air defenders started wrecking house with this new ammunition. The British reported back that the average amount of ammunition expenditure went from 1,800 rounds to down an enemy plane to 85. They said not only were they shooting down way more enemy planes with way less ammunition, but
at that point, the people who were initially designing it, that were having to bang their heads against the wall of bureaucracy that was that guy in charge, should have walked right in, showed the two numbers, like, see, this is the number we had before. This is how much we're doing now. So, is it perfect or does it work? Which one do you want?
proximity fuse was actually so sensitive and so good at its job that when it got near a bird in flight, it would blow up the bird. And at this point, common sense would tell you, like, okay, maybe we should dial back the sensitivity.
Holy crap, I did not expect to see that. It took me a second, like, wait, what? Oh, he hit the bird.
On this thing a little bit if we're blowing up something as small as a bird, but no, because that means that it's going to be perfect to actually shoot down the German V1 rocket. Germany's been shooting these V1 rockets into Britain, and there's almost nothing they could do about it. They just kind of had to grit their teeth and take the hit every single time because these rockets were moving way too fast for the anti-aircraft artillery batteries to actually do anything to them, like 99% of the time. I actually found one account from a British soldier, and I'm paraphrasing here, but more or less, he says that we knew we couldn't do anything against the V1 rocket bombs, but we would still go out there and shoot at them anyways, even though we knew we weren't going to shoot them down, just because it made the citizenry feel better because they didn't feel like they were completely helpless. They went from shooting down less than 10% of the V1 rockets to shooting down 85% of them with the new VT fuse.
That's a big one. Got a small story. One moment. So, a friend of mine, I may have mentioned this before, on his dad's side of the family, his grandmother was from Germany during this time. She was a little girl in Germany, but I believe her father was part of the Wehrmacht. Not Nazi party, Wehrmacht. At the time, the Wehrmacht was, for those who might be learning this historical stuff alongside me, Wehrmacht and the Nazis were two separate entities, although the Wehrmacht had to follow orders from the Nazis, if that makes sense. So, Wehrmacht was just the Nazis. Or, I'm mixing that all up. Wehrmacht was just the German army. Nazis were who the Nazis were, right? Well, this friend's I believe it was his great-great-grandfather, if not maybe an uncle, either way, was a commander in the Wehrmacht. A commander whose station was in charge of firing V1s. And he was not particularly a fan of what was going on. He wasn't a fan of the war. But he couldn't say that in front of the SS officer that was in the same room as him, that was there to make sure he followed orders. So he had to fire. He had to follow the orders and fire. But my understanding was, the way he saw it, one of the reasons why he chose to continue holding his position is because at least that way he had some control over the situation. Like, he could decide to hold off momentarily some attacks so that they might not cause as much damage. Now, he couldn't outright ignore the orders, because if he did ignore orders, the SS officer would have popped him and then told the next person in command, all right, who's taking over for this person who didn't want to follow orders. So that's why he kept his position. But my understanding was he did, at least that way, he could make some difference in how many people actually got killed versus doing the maximum amount of carnage. And then after the war, he was just like, okay, nope, I'm done with this. He burned everything relating to his service. He didn't keep his uniforms. His uniforms were burned. I can't remember, buried or burned his medals, disposed of them in any case. Literally, after he was done, and after that war was done, the only evidence that ever existed afterwards was one single photograph of him in uniform, and that was it. He just completely disassociated with the war, with everything that had happened. Just, everything just donezo. And that's just, hearing about V1s in this video made me realize, made me think of that. It's like, how many people didn't want to fire those rockets? How many people were in charge of that? How many people were gung-ho about and all in for the fatherland? And how many people were like, this is too much. But if we don't do what they tell us, they will not only kill us, they might kill our families too, so I've got to do something. Maybe I can make some difference in this small way, maybe not make it as bad. And it's stories like that a lot of people nowadays, there's a lot of people nowadays that don't care about nuance. So we would hear that and go like, kill that person. I don't care if he was ordered. I don't care if he didn't want to do it, had to do it anyways. Like, I don't care what the situation was. But, yeah. So, but the V1s were very, very, very serious. My understanding was, if it was found out that you operated in anywhere where V1s were being launched or were in charge in any capacity, it was like, okay, yeah, Nuremberg's gonna have a field day with you, and we don't care whether or not you were threatened, basically. So, that's why all evidence, save the one photograph, was destroyed of his. Yeah. It's scary how much the citizens of Germany, especially those who weren't fans of the war, but were in positions where they had to contribute to the war, how much they may have maybe like little tweak here, or hold off for a second here, or aim slightly to this direction instead of maybe that direction. Maybe it'll miss the worst of it and stuff like that. We don't know the full extent of how many people were against it that had to be directly involved. And another example was, what was it? Anyone knows the Sabaton song No Bullets Fly, about the ye old pub B-52 bomber that was shot out of crap, and then one German pilot had gone up to take it down, saw how bad it was, he's like, no, I'm not going to shoot these people down, like they're already limping enough as it is. He instead escorted them back to the English Channel, and because he was with them, no one shot at them, but he kept it tight-lipped throughout the rest of the war. And the pilot of the ye old pub, and I can't remember the German pilot's name, and the German pilot, like Charlie and Franz, I think, reconnected, 50 years after and became best of friends. So, not a common story by any means, but sometimes you wonder, kind of makes me wonder a little bit how many people, because you hear stories about American soldiers that were bleeding out, saved by German medics, and just stuff like that. So, it was not everywhere, unfortunately. If everybody had stood up and said, nah, we're not. So, but anyways, I've done babbled on long enough. back to
Now,
this.
panning back over to the U.S. Navy in the Pacific, it's basically a turkey shoot at this point, and the Japanese are finding out the hard way that traditional dive bombing tactics are way less cool
Not
when the
working
bullets
anymore.
flying past you don't fly past you and explode right next to you and shoot your plane down, right? Because that's what they've been used to the entire time. When they were getting shot at with actual variable timed fuses that had a secondary timer, the fuses were either blowing up way in front of them or they'd fly right past them and blow up behind them, and they were typically fine. But now, all of a sudden, for no reason from their perspective, all of the fuses are blowing up at the opportune moment every single time. The Americans are shooting down so many Japanese planes that they're literally running out of planes and pilots. And over the course of a little bit over a year, they've basically completely run out of experienced pilots because they don't do what the Americans do, where they're like, oh, we've got a really good, seasoned, experienced pilot. We're going to pull him out of combat, send him back to go train all the new guys, so all of our new guys are up to a higher standard. No, most other militaries don't do that. They're just constantly sending in their best guys every single time. And because of that, after about a year and a half of the VT fuse being used in combat, not only is there no good Japanese pilots left in combat, there's no good pilots left on the back end to train all the new guys, so now their entire Air Force is
Nothing
just
but
completely
rookies.
crippled. And this is why by October
Nothing but
of
rookies.
1944, the Japanese resorted to kamikaze attacks, literally just bolting young
Divine Wind. Oh, okay.
men into the cockpit of a plane.
I didn't know if that
sending
said
them
something
on a
different than what
one-way
I was
mission
used to
their
learning.
death. And while that is unfortunate for them, luckily for the Americans, the VT fuse does not discriminate. It can't tell the difference between a dive bomber and a kamikaze, so it just blows them up too. Now, there's a bunch of different stories where a bunch of different ships have shot down a ton of kamikazes using the VT fuse, but the shining example is the USS Laffey. The Laffey is a Fletcher-class destroyer, and the Fletcher-class destroyers was America's mass production ship during World War II. These things are so lightly armored that they are nicknamed tin cans. Using the VT fuse in a single battle over the course of an hour, the Laffey went toe-to-toe with 22 Japanese kamikazes, shot down 9 of them, and heavily damaged the rest. Do you understand how demoralizing that has to be to the enemy? Like, there's entire countries on Earth right now that don't have 22 aircraft in their entire military. I think the average for a first world country is somewhere between 100 and 150 total aircraft across all branches of their military. And that's fighters, bombers, recon, absolutely everything. Could you imagine throwing all of the fighter planes your country has at a singular ship that's referred to as a tin can, and it fucks up all of them? By this point in time, the
I might start something in the comments, but trash movie, funny scene.
VT fuse has officially changed naval and aerial warfare forever. And it's about to change warfare as a whole, because by late 1944, Eisenhower sees how effective the VT fuse is for the Navy in Great Britain, and he ends up demanding that they give it to his ground troops in Europe. After seeing how overwhelmingly effective they are, he doesn't give a shit about it being top secret and only firing it over the ocean anymore, because by the time they're able to capture a dud and reverse engineer it, the war's gonna be over, and he knows that. So
okay,
they take the
not a
VT
bad.
fuse and they start sticking it in normal artillery.
I mean, I see the logic.
Artillery up until now was usually direct impact, right? The shell hits the ground, it explodes, launches shrapnel everywhere. That's still pretty effective, but if a dude is like dug into a hole, all the shrapnel is gonna fly right over the top of him, right? And half the shrapnel, once it hits the ground, goes into the fucking ground immediately. So now with the proximity fuse, it's gonna sense the ground 40, 50, 60 feet above, and it's gonna blow up and blow all that shit straight down on top of people, whether they're in a foxhole or not. This new airburst artillery is so devastating that the first time it's ever used in combat, it basically puts the linchpin in the European theater and ends the war. Because the first time the VT fuse was used in combat was at the Battle of the Bulge. Okay, if you don't know what the Battle of the Bulge is, essentially Germany was on their heels and they decided, fuck it, we're gonna throw one big last Hail Mary. We're gonna take everything we've got in one big offensive and attack the American line, try to punch through with our blitzkrieg tactic and destroy the Americans. And it was working out for them right up until it started raining metal. The new airburst artillery absolutely shredded German infantry units.
Raining Metal is a title of something. Like, I don't know if it'll be like a bullet hell game or a metal song. Raining Metal. That's
There was nowhere they could hide. Foxholes weren't really that effective against airburst, and even if they wanted to dig one, the ground was half frozen. And when they tried to hide in the wood line, the airbursts literally cut the forest down around them. You can find pictures of the Ardennes forest after the Battle of the Bulge, and the tops of the trees are just cut off with complete carnage underneath them. But chubby Electron guy's exaggerating. The VT Fuze wasn't that big of a deal, and it didn't make a huge impact at the Battle of the Bulge. Buh. You know what? Fine. Don't take my word for it. I wasn't there. Let's see what General Patton had to say about it. The funny Fuze won the Battle of the Bulge for us. I think when all the armies get this shell, we will have to devise some new method of warfare. So yeah, while nuclear bombs ended World War II in the Pacific theater in particular, they are not the weapon that got the war to its end. That credit belongs to the VT Fuze in both the European and the Pacific theater, and for that reason, it is the most important weapon of World War II. Real quick, I do have to give a special thank you because this video would have never happened if it wasn't for Fort Sill, the home of the artillery down in Oklahoma. In particular, Corey, the curator over at the Air Defense Artillery Training and Support Facility, which is basically a museum for the history of American air
showing a
defense
clip of
weapons
this
platforms.
before
And
in
the
a prior video.
proximity Fuze was one of probably 200 exhibits there. Me and my friend Ethan, also known as Habitual Line Crosser here on YouTube, got together and we're making a new Pepperbox exclusive show where we get to go around the country and tour military museums and learn from the curators at those museums. And here's the teaser for that.
Training support facilities are not open to the public, and they are basically facilities that we can bring in soldiers to instill a little bit of esprit de corps to them. And Congress finds themselves looking down the barrels of too hot 40 millimeters. When you hurt Congress, that's going to be the end of your program.
Yeah, that was in the Fort York video, which I think came right after this one. Or, no, not Fort York. The York tank.
It worked perfect. Why are they mad? It hates piles of shit. It's awesome. This is my new favorite tank. There's nothing funnier than just America being like, this is cool. We're going to take it and put it in a museum.
And that's a large blow up of the day that Japan fucked around. We get to the find out
section.
Yeah, find out section.
Find out over here.
Suck
This
that, German
way.
engineering.
Can't build a prox fuse, can't win a world war. Fucking sucks to suck.
No, you can get these on eBay too. I mean, about what, 42,000?
Oh, you shouldn't have told him that.
I know, right?
Are you getting an M45 now?
I mean, I'll put all the money we make from this for the next 10 years.
Jeez.
Telling me size doesn't matter. It's how you use it.
Exactly. That's exactly it. It's all about how you use it. So that's also what someone with small rockets would say.
Don't lick it.
We
See that?
Yeah. Please don't lick the artifacts. Unfortunately,
Radiation.
the motors need the brushes replaced. Which that's a major overhaul on that one.
No, it's not. I'm an electrician. I know how to replace brushes.
You know what? You are more than welcome to come here, and this is one that I'd let you work on.
I think that first episode is almost 2 hours long, and it is available right now over at pepperbox.tv if you want to go check it out. Other than that, thank you for watching. I gotta go.
Yeah, I mean... Oh, wait, no ending this time? There normally is an ending anymore. Okay, I guess there's no extra bit at the end. Yeah, these are the two videos I need to get to that are being shown right there. But yeah, sorry for the long tangent not a little bit ago, but it reminded me of something and I had to get it out, otherwise it was going to bother me the rest of the video and I'd forget by the end. So, but anywho, yeah, that was the VT Fuses video. To anybody saying buh in the comments, it sure sounded like, according to the people that actually fought the war, it made a really big difference. I don't think I'd ever heard of VT Fuses before being used in artillery, but hearing about this, it makes a whole lot of sense, don't it? It really does. Like, if you're missing, like, most of your shots with anti-air, find a way to narrow it down a little. Find ways to improve that. And they found a big way to improve that. Shoot, maybe the war could have been over a little bit sooner if that project had been greenlit a little bit sooner. But, you know, it ended when it ended. Anyways, that's going to do it for this video. I need to go ahead and react to... I'm going to react to another video at least before I head to the movies today. So... yeah, but this was a very fascinating, shorter video of his on the Fat Electrician channel, and Yeah. Some of the others I gotta catch up on are over 30 minutes, so it's gonna be like, oh. But we're gonna get to that. Excuse me. Get to that when I get to that. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Like if you enjoyed. Comment what your favorite part of this reaction was and what your favorite part of this story was. Subscribe if my Ching Lee making a cameo to push things through was a really. I'm coming through. Indeed. Was probably my favorite moment, finding out that he's the reason why this project got back up off the ground and lived. Subscribe if you're new, and tap the bell to get notified whenever I upload a video so you don't miss any reactions, gameplay, or otherwise from me. Also, go check out my Discord. Link is in the description. Come join. We will talk. Post memes, songs, videos, artwork. You can start promote your own stuff and just have some fun. This has been Lance Corporal Hawk 30, signing off.